Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the River Grove Combined Veterans Podcast, number 3. That's right, number 3. We've already had 2. It's been a while since we've been on, but we're back. River Grove Combined Veterans consists of the American Legion Post 335 in River Grove, commanded by Lorenzo Fiorentino, and also the Veterans of Foreign War Post 5979, commanded by Sean Schroeder. My name is Richard Wojciunik, and I'll be your host and interviewer. Some of you might remember the Billy Castellano, who was our former host and interviewer. He had his own business and a full-time job, and it just became too much for him. So, I'm going to try to fill his shoes and try to do a job just as good as Billy did, I hope. And maybe someday Billy will reconsider it, or maybe he'll have the time and he'll take over the podcast again. We'll see. River Grove Combined Veterans is located at 8664 West Grand Avenue in beautiful River Grove. Our purpose is to educate, entertain, and inform veterans. We're going to be interviewing veterans throughout the Chicagoland area and folks who may not be veterans but who support or do things for veterans. As Hines Hospital, we're very lucky we have Bert Batania, one of our post members. He works in the mental health department of the Hines VA Hospital. So we're going to be interviewing him one of these days, but we'll probably be interviewing other folks that he can line us up with out of Hines. And it's all about getting information to our veterans. So our return podcast will be with the author and our American Legion commander, Lorenzo Fiorentino, and his book, Illinois Military Monuments. So we're going to start with that today. So I want you to sit back and relax and enjoy. Stand by. Good evening, Lorenzo. How you doing? Here we're going to interview you on your book, Illinois Military Monuments. And first I'd like to ask, want to introduce yourself or anything? Or?
Good evening, Richard, and everybody out there. Thank you. I think I'm really excited about talking about my monuments book, and by all means, any questions you have, I'll try and answer to the best that I can.
Outstanding. Let's begin. I want to find out, Lorenzo, where were you born?
I was born in Sicily, a little town called Casteldaccia, which is Palermo, Sicily.
Mm-hmm. Palermo. And what year was that? Do you mind if you tell me?
I was born in 1969, and we came to the States in 1972.
I see.
We ended up flying in through Detroit and then moving to Chicago.
Oh, interesting. Oh. And so that's when you arrived here in 1972. The whole family. How many were you and your family?
There's 4 of us, children,
mm-hmm.
and my mom and my dad. So a total of 6 of us.
Mm-hmm. And when you were here, what high school did you go to?
I attended Steinmetz High School, and I graduated in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal was always to go into the Army, and wasn't really the route that I wanted to go, but I ended up going directly to college first because I received an ROTC scholarship.
I was going to say, I remember you telling me you were in the ROTC. How many years were you in the ROTC in high school?
High school, I did 4 years of ROTC,
mm-hmm.
and then I also did another 4 years in college.
In college. And what college you go to?
University of Illinois in Chicago. We used to call it Circle.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, Circle Campus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I remember it back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And what year did you join the National Guard?
I enlisted in the National Guard while I was still in college because I really got antsy and wanted to join the military, so I figured at least that way I could do the National Guard route. And I actually enlisted between my senior year of high school and freshman year of college.
When you enlisted in college, were you already starting to do your drills, or you had to wait till you graduated?
I ended up doing regular monthly drills.
As a student?
As a student.
Mm-hmm.
And we were part of, at the time it was called the Simultaneous Membership Program,
mm-hmm.
which the federal government, because of ROTC is a federal program, and the state of Illinois had an agreement that you could do both.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So initially I was an enlisted man in the National Guard,
mm-hmm.
Reaching the grade of sergeant. And then after I contracted, then I would wear the cadet rank on my uniform whenever I went to weekend drills, annual trainings, or any other activities that we would do.
Interesting. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And, folks, I just want to let you know that if you do hear some background noises, we're at the post, and they're constructing our museum right now. And we have our museum that's being constructed by the village, so you'll hear some of that background noise. And sometime later on, we'll speak about the museum. Lorenzo, when did you apply to become an officer in the National Guard?
So my junior year of college, we had to contract. So technically, that's when I would have applied to receive a commission.
I see.
It's a contract that says, yes, my goal is to someday be an officer in the Army.
I see, interesting. And so then you served in Afghanistan several years later, of course, because you joined the Army in '89, right?
I enlisted in '89, commissioned in '92.
In '92. And what year did you go to Afghanistan?
2004 to 2005.
And how many months were you spent in Afghanistan?
We did exactly 12 months.
12 months, wow. Interesting, wow. Okay, hey, Lorenzo, we're going to start now with your book. Outstanding book, and I want to mention everybody again, and I don't remember if I said that in the introduction or not, but about maybe 2 months ago, you sent a copy to President Trump.
I did, yeah.
And you sent it, I remember you telling me you sent it because of the issues or the problems we had with the monuments here. And
yes.
What a cool idea to send him a book on the monuments.
I figured it'd be kind of neat, you know. And yes, I did send him a book basically for that exact reason. We need champions of our history. We don't need to rewrite history. We don't need to tear down monuments. We need to understand our history, and whether it's good history or bad history, it's our history. We have to own it, and we have to move forward, and we have to find ways to fix things. Trying to delete our history is not the way to fix it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I agree with that. That's for sure. When did President Trump send you the letter?
It was about probably 10 days ago
10
now.
days ago, yeah. I remember posting that on Facebook, and tons of folks put hearts and likes, and I know a lot of people got a kick out of that also.
Yeah.
When did you decide to write the book?
I started writing the book in 2018. I probably started wanting to write the book a lot earlier than that, just didn't have time. In 2018, I decided I'd make the time. From the day I signed the contract to write the book to the day it was published was right about 18 months. So by July, it was finally issued officially on July 1st of 2019, although I got advance copies in June.
And when did you finish that book?
I finished it, I submitted everything. It was probably March 30th of 2019.
2019, huh?
Yeah.
I want to say also thank you so much for giving everyone in our post a signed copy of your book. That was very, I appreciate that a lot. That book is outstanding, and I remember buying another copy, giving it to my brother who was also in the military, an officer. He was very impressed with that book also. Thank you so much for doing that. I know all the members really enjoyed that.
You're very welcome. My goal with that was that, because the whole reason of the writing of the book was basically to make people more aware of monuments. And so I saw it only as a natural thing to present a copy, autographed, if I do say so myself, to every member of the post. The only thing was you had to show up to the meetings.
Exactly.
And I hate to say, there's a couple people I haven't seen at the meetings since. But it did get some people to show up to the meetings, and I was thrilled to be able to do that. And the offer still stands. If I haven't presented you a book and you show up to the meeting, I still carry them in my trunk.
Oh, cool, man. Very cool. Yeah, again, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And did you travel the length and breadth of the state to do your research?
I did do a lot of traveling, both north and south and east and west, and I loved it. A lot of what I did also was I had friends in other parts of the state, some soldiers that formerly served with me in other parts of the state. But what was really neat is, and if they took pictures for me, I made sure to put them in the book and give them credit, because I believe in giving credit where credit's due. But also, I enjoyed especially a couple of days when I went to see some of my former soldiers, because we spent like the day hanging out, and at the same time, he was an expert in his area, so we took some pictures too. So. It was really a fulfilling time for me to do that.
Very cool. Wow, very cool. Do you have any sense of how many hours you might have put into this book?
Oh, I would say between the traveling, the working at home on it, the doing the research, thousands of hours.
Thousands of hours.
Yeah, thousands of hours and thousands of miles.
Right. And to go back on the last question a little bit, did you actually? So I know you visit soldiers, but did you pick places within the state because you heard of a monument and you said, I got to go over there and see that myself or take a photograph, or did you rely on other guys around that area just to get all your photographs for you, or did you actually travel out there?
I did both, actually. I mean, there were some where I had no friends in the area, like, believe it or not, like Peoria. I didn't really know anybody in Peoria, so a couple of times I went down to Peoria and hit all the suburbs around there, and Peoria a couple of times. And then, of course, I had, and then friends that I knew where they were, I asked them to take some pictures for me. And as friends, it was kind of neat, because as friends of mine saw some monuments, they would send me pictures and say, is this one, you want this one, you want this one, and so it was kind of neat. It actually kept me in touch with more of my soldiers.
Well, that actually leads me into my next question. Does it cover all the veteran monuments in the state?
Well, in my book, there's only 85 monuments, because I was limited to 127 pages. It would have been 128, but I insisted on having an index because I wanted people to just quickly be able to see if their town was featured. So because of that, I was only able to feature 85 monuments. Now in the state of Illinois, thankfully, there's a lot more than that. It also, I've got easily enough material to do another 3-4 books, because that's
on Illinois monuments.
Yes, that's how much I really got into it. I got into it so much that the company had to say, "Hey, buddy, it's time for you to start finishing this book," because and when I was getting ready to actually finish the book, I was like, "Okay, I've got about 350 monuments." They're like, "Great, we only need about 85 of them."
Is that right?
So literally. I would guess I was enjoying my work too much and forgot that I didn't need all those, but I do have plenty, and I think that's why I like doing the free the presentations that I do. I say they're free because they are, and I say that because places have offered to pay me, what have you, but I'm not about that. I'm about the enjoying of the history, and when I do those presentations, I literally talk about monuments that are not in the book, because if you want to buy the book, you can just read it and see the pictures. So I prefer to talk about monuments that most of them are not in the book. So that way you get a little more information also.
I've been to several of your talks about your book, and I always find it like I'm in a history class back in high school. I really do. I always enjoyed them, and you do cover stuff that's not in the book. And so to me, it's because the first time I went, I thought, well, I know it's in the book, and we're going to cover that. And then when you spoke about other monuments, I thought, oh gosh, it piqued my interest. I was glued, so I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I was going to ask a question about how did you pick? How did they pick those 85? Who decided these 85 will only be in a book?
I had full, authority to pick which ones I wanted to be in there. The company Arcadia gave me full liberty to do whatever I wanted as far as choosing and the layout. What I wanted to do. So I had to work really hard to find some monuments. So a perfect example would be the Spanish-American War. There aren't that many out there. So I really had to go out of my way to look for Spanish-American War monuments. And that's how I broke up the book, was in terms of different periods of war. And then, then you talk about World War II. Well, there's World War II, God bless, monuments everywhere. So by the time I had all these different monuments, I had to really pick and choose to try and give each war the same amount of appreciation, show the same amount of monuments for each period. So that was how I ended up deciding which monuments to put in there. I knew I was going to put monuments from all the war eras, but then I also had to decide, so if I put Peoria's World War II monument in there, then maybe I would put Washington, which is a suburb of Peoria, maybe I would put their World War I monument in there. So that way I could still get a lot of communities represented and give each the fair amount of pictures and time in the book.
Interesting, yeah. Out of all the monuments you got to look and all your time out there looking at those monuments, what is the most significant monument you wrote about, do you think, in your opinion?
I think the one that I appreciated the most personally was my wife and I one day, we were out doing taking pictures of some monuments that were out in the Elgin area. And I saw they had a Civil War cannon there, and I thought, oh my God, you know, that we could do something on Molly Pitcher. And Molly Pitcher was basically, briefly, she was a service member's wife during the Revolutionary War, and he was a cannoneer. He was, you know, he was working in the artillery. So he got killed, and his wife took his place, being the cannoneer, which was very common in those days. You took your spouse to battle with you. That's how you got anything to eat that was decent. I should have taken my wife to Afghanistan. Maybe I would have had a decent meal from time to time. But so anyway, the story goes that later in years, Molly became a very famous person within the air defense artillery and field artillery branches. And so what commanders, battalion commanders and brigade commanders did after a while was start presenting an award to the spouse of the commanders for each company or battalion, etc. So I happen to have been the commander for an air defense artillery unit, and upon the successful completion of my command, my wife was presented the Molly Pitcher Award.
Oh, very nice.
So if you look on page 4, there's a picture of her standing in front of the cannon in Elgin. I didn't tell her that's what I was doing.
4 or 104?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 104. Thank you.
I remember that from the book.
Yeah. There's a picture of her standing there, and it goes into the description of Molly Pitcher and everything. And the important thing that I think is, you know, oftentimes our families, they don't get the support, they don't get the credit for keeping things back home pretty much on an even keel, while the rest of us are doing what we're doing in far places of the world. So that's why, to me, Molly Pitcher, the Molly Pitcher Award and the Molly Pitcher Monument that's in the book is one of the most important ones to me.
Interesting. Wow. And what is the most obscure one?
So I used to drive down Thatcher Avenue in River Forest. And I always saw a tiny little, what looked like a tombstone, you know, like in right off the road in the forest preserve. And I always knew it was there. I always saw it there, but I never actually knew what it was. So it's actually kind of neat that the most obscure monument that I knew of was in plain sight the whole time. So one day when I actually stopped to take a look at it, I realized that the monument is there. It's a dedication to World War I, and it's to the Grand Army of the Republic. And at the time also, that part of the Forest Preserve was called Grand Army of the Republic Memorial Woods, which I believe it's still called that. And eventually, I did take a picture of it. And for its simplicity, it's really deep. If you don't mind, I'm going to read what it has actually inscribed on it. And it says, Grand Army of the Republic Memorial Woods, in honor of the men who wore the blue and served in the Union Army of the Civil War, USA 1861-1865. It continues on, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friend. And that's St. John who actually quoted that. And once again, I know I said it was a World War I monument. It is actually a Civil War monument. It was put there right after World War I in 1918. So that would probably be one of the ones that I would have to say was one of the hardest ones to find that was always there, and I must have known it was there since I was in college.
And how did you find that out? And how did you know it was there? Somebody talked about it? Or?
I used to take that street to go to school.
I see.
When I would go to UIC.
And what about monuments? Since you did this book, and I know you've got a lot of photographs and you still could do other books, but are there monuments still popping up for World War II, Korea? Are they done with that? Are they just looking at, now OIF? Afghanistan, Desert Storm, are they still putting up dedications to Korea and World War II? Do you know if they're still?
I think what the most recent one was the most recent of prior wars was a Korean one that they put up outside of one of the museums in D.C., but I can't remember the name of it. But to answer your question, yes. I mean, now the focus is more on the current wars. But what's important to remember is that the monuments that are out there, whether they be World War I, Spanish-American War, World War II, there are grants available for communities to be able to request money to keep those monuments looking new and looking nice. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the bigger thing right now is keeping communities that are working to keep the older monuments in nice looking condition, mm-hmm. And the concentration is more on the current wars, mm-hmm. but incorporating the other monuments whenever possible, mm-hmm. to honor everyone that came before us, everyone that's still in, mm-hmm. and everyone that's coming after us.
Yes. Not to get political, but with all the problems with the monument, the destruction and taking down of monuments, can you speak a little bit about that? I know you spoke a little bit before about the importance of the history of that, and that you can't. History is there is there for a life for us to learn from it. Can you speak more on that?
So I do fancy myself a history aficionado. I love history, always have, and a lot of what we see happening now, in my opinion, is we want to, and I'll use the term generally, want to rewrite history. And what we have to remember with history is that history is made at the time, and when we start looking at, what this guy did was wrong, and what this guy did was wrong, it may be wrong to our standard today, mm-hmm. Based off of what we have accepted as right and wrong, but maybe in that day it was commonplace. That doesn't make it right, but it should be looked at, history, as I was always taught it, in order to be effective and in order to really understand and learn it, you need to try and look at it from that perspective of that time. Mm-hmm. Because if we're just looking at history from our perspective now, all we're doing is judging it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, when you look at places like Syria, when ISIS had taken over basically that entire area, it was about twice the size of Pennsylvania, I think I heard recently on the radio. When you start looking at places like Afghanistan, where the Taliban blew up century-old Burmese temples and monuments. When you look at, tyrants of the past, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, these were all organizations, let's use that term, that the first thing that they wanted to do was destroy everything that was there prior to them. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened after that? Then they start going after the people that aren't like them. Okay, maybe some people may think that's a stretch, but maybe not. What did Stalin do? He started killing Poles and Lithuanians and Latvians like they didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And he didn't kill them, he just put them in camps to work them to death. Okay? What did the Japanese do in Manchuria? Pretty much the same thing. You want to exterminate, it starts by exterminating the people's history, and then you start exterminating the people. I will mention Adolf Hitler and the Holocaust. I mean, horrible times. The Katyn Forest, which is in the book. The Russians tried to blame it on the Nazis, but the Nazis did a great job documenting that it was actually Russian ammunition that killed the intelligentsia of an entire nation. They exterminated the intelligentsia, the educated, the professors, the doctors, the military leadership of the entire Polish nation when the Russians first rolled into Poland. And that's the fear that I have, is we start erasing our history, then we start erasing our people, depending on who's in charge. So I say, let the statues stand, let the monuments stand, and just use them for what they are. They are reminders of our historical past. And maybe it's not all to be proud of, but at least we live in a country where we can accept our past and move forward and make things better. So, sorry, it might be a little bit
that's very
long-winded.
I like the way you put that. It's very good, Lorenzo. I like that. You know, and that kind of leads us into the museum, and we'll wrap up that with this interview with that. And I want to say it was very interesting. We just talked about your book because I know when you do your book presentations, it's about the monuments and the photographs. Should we talk a little bit of how you put that together, which I found interesting, and I never asked you these before, so I'm not familiar with that. I found that very interesting. But let's wrap up a little bit with the museum, going from our history, keeping history, and now our museum here. Can you speak a little bit of our post-museum here?
So I think what we've always envisioned was a place where our veterans could call part of their own. And by that, as we've always talked about including everybody. So, you know, I've had some people say, oh, well, it should only be a community thing. Oh, well, why is it everybody? Well, the reason it's not just a River Grove thing, the reason it's a Chicagoland thing, the reason it's anybody that wants to be part of our living museum is welcome to it is because we cannot be exclusive. We want to be inclusive. So if you have something that you would like to be featured in your museum, if you have a story that you would like to put on our video presentations eventually, because we're going to have a video presentation when you first walk into the museum, you're more than welcome to share it with us, and we'll do our best to feature everybody that wants to be featured. That was the idea behind our Veterans Honor Wall. Part of the museum is going to be honoring our veterans, past, present, and by honoring our past and our present, we're also honoring our future. Because hopefully some little guy like what I was will look at that and say, wow, how cool is that? I want to serve my country too. So that's why it's always past, present, and future. Because by doing what we do, hopefully we can encourage the future. And so that being said, the museum is, it's been one of those things that we've talked about in the past, and we're finally with the help of River Grove, they are doing our painting, and they're redoing our electrical so we don't burn the place down. And you know, we've got cabinets that we have picked up that are going to look period. Our goal is to make things look as impressive as we can on a very limited budget. So that being said, we're very excited about it. If you want to kind of get a peek at the museum, let us know. We're always happy to show everybody what we're up to. We will be dedicating it on November 8th, but if you want to see our progress, let us know. We'll show you how far we've come along.
Lorenzo, let's speak a little bit about our and then we'll wrap it up with our American Legion VFW post-meeting dates. Our American Legion is on the second Thursday of the month, and our Veterans of Foreign War meeting on the first Monday of the month. Second Monday of the month. I'm so sorry, second Monday of the month. So American Legion second Thursday of the month, VFW second Monday of the month. And if anybody's interested to come, that's a good time to come, right? We start at 7:30?
Absolutely, 7:30. We used to start earlier and we used to have dinner, but the world has changed due to COVID, and so now we skip dinner and we have our meeting, and then we enjoy each other's company for a little while afterwards.
So if anybody's interested to come see the museum and see what we're doing, or if you're a veteran and you're interested in joining the River Grove Combined Veterans, which is the American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars, please come down and stop in on that second Thursday of the month or the second Monday of the month and see us around 7:30, and we'll take you around and come and talk to the men and women that are here, part of our post. And we definitely welcome you and like to have you as a member. Lorenzo, thank you so much for taking your time today. And I learned a lot again, as I always do. Every time you have a presentation or as with this interview today, I learned a lot. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.